Welcome! We are coming to you live from an undisclosed location atop the Rocky Mountains in the beautiful Pacific Northwest of the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special episode of Dark Wolf's Den. I'd like to welcome our guest here. He's part of the ME24 group. What I'm going to be trying to do is get everybody from the ME24 group on here and try to do an interview with them, kind of get to know them better, and really get people out out in the open and in the public eye. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Glenn Mink. Great to have you here, Glenn. Appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, glad to be on here. Enjoy your channel immensely, brother.
Well, I appreciate that. That really means a lot to us. We're glad you decided to join us tonight. I know you've been having it kind of rough lately.
Yeah, and you know what? I think in the earlier chats of mine, other people are having it rough right now too. So it seems like
it's funny. When I started making a breakthrough here and there, I noticed that I started getting attacked. And then SMQ, when he makes a breakthrough, he ends up getting attacked. And if it don't work on one of us, it goes to the next one and the next one and the next one. And I've kind of seen that happen in our group. If one of us don't give in, it'll try somebody else till one of us does give in.
Right. Did you see my video? Been a few days back where I talked about a collective energy that we all can generate as far as supporting one another.
I can't say I had a chance to check that out. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about it, though?
Well, my belief in things right now is that those that are affected are probably the only real people in this world. And when we go through these things and we support one another, I do think we have the ability to create, whether we want to call it meditation, prayer, good vibes, whatever, and give each other that support and that energy, that collective energy together to go through things. Because there are plenty of times that I've had where people in the stream, people that follow me and others, have offered support and tell me that they're behind me 100%, and that thought seems to generate an energy, like a confidence boost, to be able to go forward. And it's a lot different than having an unaffected person just walk up to you and say, "Well, I hope things work out," or "I'm praying for you." This surpasses that. It's like when you know that you've got an affected individual that believes the same thing that you do, that is supporting you, you get a little extra power behind you.
Well, there's a theory I have on why that is. And it's the same theory as to why we manifest, but I don't want to go into that too deep just yet. I'm still working that theory out.
Right.
In case I say something stupid, go back, "Oh, you guys, look, I didn't mean that,"
Yeah, exactly. And there are things you can't go deeper on either, because if you do, it drains you physically, emotionally, spiritually. It drains you when you express those thoughts. Because the community in a whole has to be prepared for any new knowledge or shifts to occur. Because not everybody's at the same point being awake.
Oh, absolutely. We're all on different levels of being aware and awake, and how long we've been studying the stuff. And, some of us, I took for granted. I've studied this since I was 12 years old, just paranormal in general.
Right.
And I've learned a whole lot over the years. When I started doing YouTube, I did this thing called the Rockinati Show with my buddy Uni Rock.
Yeah.
I just have all these different facts and whatnot. To me, it was commonplace to know. Right. And a lot of people, "I didn't know that. Wow, that's so cool. How come I never knew about that?" I'm thinking, wow, I really didn't know I knew as much as I know,
Right.
Granted.
Right. And when you focus on a thought or an idea, it's amazing how that thought and idea will progress the more you try to be open-minded and accept whatever it's going to reveal to you. If you start thinking about a thought or an idea or a theory, and you start trying to interject what you think, then you distort it. But if you're open enough to let whatever comes into it come, it'll reveal itself to you.
Oh, absolutely. Give me a second. I'm trying to go over here and grab this chat. I'm not looking at chat right now. I'm doing this from a cell phone right now, guys, so bear with me here. I apologize. You've been talking to me and I ain't been seeing it. I'm going to try to go grab the. Wait, there we go. All right, now you got the chat. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, yeah.
Wonderful. Good. We're good to go now. All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to the room. G Minion, Meditation, Skookum, Creek Mary, Master Richie, Joanna, QP, and Steve Raybon, Svetlana. Thank you guys for showing up and hanging out with us. We really appreciate that. Glenn, so tell us, bud, did you study paranormal and whatnot before you found the Mandela effect, or was that your awakening point?
Well, for me, I knew when I was a kid and felt like I did not belong in this world. It was a very odd and eerie feeling. And ever since I had that experience as a kid and feeling that, I've always been searching. And I got interested in Sasquatch at a young age. I got interested in all the cryptozoological, let me try that again.
Cryptozoological.
Right. Got interested in that. And then, of course, beyond that, into UFOs and different things that were going on, the whole sci-fi thing. And searching for answers, I was told about some of the Mandela effects years ago. Obviously, of course, it's only had its name since 2013 when Nelson Mandela died. It got, that's where the name comes from. But I started becoming aware of the effects, and it never clicked. I looked at the effects and thought, yeah, that's neat. That's changes. But when I listened one night to MA just out of the blue, I thought, well, okay, well, let me listen to this guy. He's sitting here with a cup of coffee and he's just talking. And the things he started talking about were a little beyond the normal logo change, song change, and that sort of thing. And then I knew right then and there that, okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I need answers on. And ever since about the last year or so, it's not so much of the awakening of the changes as the awakening of what's going on, if that makes sense.
Right. So, so you found a couple random, little changes, or I should say the ones that are most well known. And
Right.
Then, like you said, MA goes really in depth on stuff and things that you would have never thought to look at. And that's why I enjoyed his channel before I ever made one too, is he would pull up things that nobody even would dream to look at as being different, but a lot of them were. So what was the effect that just grabbed you and would not let go?
Well, being a sci-fi individual and loving science fiction stuff, when I was in 1977, I think was when Star Wars first came out, and became a huge Star Wars fan, watching all the movies, collecting all the toys and different things from that era. And
right.
When the line in the movie The Empire Strikes Back changed from Luke, I am your father, to I am your father, or whatever it's perceived to be now.
I am your father.
Yeah. That's when I knew for sure that something was different, because being such a huge fan and almost knowing the movies, line by line, I thought, well, this isn't right. Maybe it's a movie edit, but it's not. It's not a movie edit. And following that up with other things.
They didn't do a digital redub or remake or anything. You go back to the original VHS and the darn line is still in there.
Right. Right. And I call things residual effects. When they change overall, I'm not so sure that AI or the powers that be, or whatever you want to call it, changes everything. I think there's a possibility that some things are overlooked, maybe, or not changed until AI sees an affected person find it. Then it changes and shifts. Because there are a lot of things that I've seen that I've seen presented as effects, and I'm thinking, no, it's not. I got it right here. And then within days, that's different. So there could be residual things out there that are still the way they always were.
So what are your idea on flip-flops then? Speaking of the residual evidence and how it goes back and forth, what are your ideas on flip-flops as far as that goes? Because we've seen Tidy Cats, Flintstones, Costco. We've seen, there's another one I can't think of right off the top of my head, but Victoria's Secret. We've seen all these flip-flops. So how in your AI theory could you explain that? Why would the AI or the PTB do that?
Well, I think it's maybe one of two things. One is that it's doing that to cause us to have doubts or questions or be confused. And my other thought on it is that there's a possibility, like I was sharing earlier and have been sharing for weeks, that the time periods are coming so close together that they intersect, and for that brief moment, you've got that change back as the lines intersect each other. You know, like if you were standing on one side of a pond and I was on the other side, we both threw rocks up in the air into the pond. Your rock's going to hit and cause ripples coming towards me. Mine's going to hit and cause them coming towards you. And as those ripples go and intersect, you know, you see where I'm going with that. They're going to have an effect. And I think that's what time does.
I've heard ripples or anything like that. Ripples and layers. Those keep coming up over and over and over and over. And I don't know why just yet. I'm sure it's going to fit into my research eventually, but it's like it's screaming at me, ripples and layers over and over.
Yeah. 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 Well, let me ask you this to see what you think about this question. Every decision we make has a consequence or has a result. So if we're looking at ripples and loops, like the pond idea, if I make a decision right now to say, just simply stop the stream and cut it off and quit tonight, right? Okay, there are infinite possibilities of what's going to happen with that decision. So each decision based on after that is going to cause infinite reactions. And in all reality, every one of those reactions exists based upon the initial decision to do something. So me mentioning that idea to you right now has already happened. You know, in one reality, I've already stopped it and left. And
right.
Infinite results from that, you know, even going as far as affecting people in the chat line. So, you know, that's how we're accountable for, I believe, our actions and what we do, is because everything causes a reaction.
Well, I've thought about this really in depth, and I don't think every breath causes a new timeline. I just have a real big issue with that. That's just too infinite, too many people, too many timelines. I get it. It could be infinite, but that's just, you know, it's a little bit hit for me to wrap my head around. Right. I think it's in the bigger decisions we make. Whether or not we go into a car, like that could really take somebody's life. Whether or not I can't even think of one right now, but the bigger decisions, I don't think every breath we take makes another timeline. You know what I mean? Because I've really thought about that in depth.
Right. So you're holding out to like major life-changing choices is what, yeah. Yeah. Oh, right. I definitely agree that those are, yeah.
If I go to the store, I may run into somebody who offers me a job and my whole future changes. Or I sit here and I don't. You know, I can see that being one of those quantum moments. But as far as just me sitting here and deciding whether or not I'm going to breathe or whether or not I'm going to cough, or I don't see that as a quantum moment personally. And I could be wrong. I'm just telling you my opinion on it, you know. Right.
Well, if I don't know your opinion on past lives and living in other time periods, but would you think that if you believed in that a decision in a past time period could become a pattern that reoccurs in every time period, and unless you break that cycle, you continue to repeat it?
I'll take it one step further for you. How about if we reincarnate, things we've done in that past life, maybe those ripples finally reach us in this life and affect the decision we have to make now?
Yeah. Yeah. That could very well be, because the conditions and circumstances around us doesn't have to change. Just the decision made has to be changed, or the way it presents itself, you know.
Exactly. So I can make a decision right now to, I don't know, drive a car off a cliff. I'm being very facetious right now.
Right, right.
But whatever the outcome of that is, when I reincarnate back into this world, it could have something to do with somebody who was a firefighter there, or a policeman there, or somebody who was on scene at that moment, or whatever the case may be. They may enter my life in the reincarnation part, after I reincarnate, and they may, they may have some kind of purpose for me then. Again, I'm just stringing this together, but you get the idea.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, it's like meeting different people in the streams. Right now with you, I'm very, very comfortable with talking to you and with seeing you and others in the stream. It's like knowing someone forever. And I don't know how you feel about people when you talk to them, but I don't get that with even some family members, and even with people that I've known for years. They just seem acquaintances or distant. They don't have that feel of a common bond. I guess that's what I should say, a common bond in it.
I noticed over a year ago when I started, well, 2 years ago now, I guess. Yeah, over 2 years ago, when I started hanging out in Discord with Mandela Effect people and really trying to discuss things back then and figure things out, we all, agreed these people here know more about the stuff I know about and stuff I've studied, and I feel more comfortable and at home around these people here than I ever do my regular friends and family. Stuff that I can't even talk about with them completely. I'm fully on that. And it's still with this group, with every bit of Mandela affected people. I feel like I have more in common with this group or Mandela effect group than any other group in the world.
Oh yeah, definitely. I get less support from people I've known for years and what I call my timeline now than the people from the MA group. I've had more people text and call me from the group over what's going on personally right now with me than people I know and see on a regular basis. More of a family type atmosphere, and a lot of them it's because of remembering them from different time periods and timelines as well. But it's just so supportive.
So you keep bringing up time periods. Let me ask you, and you're right, we do have the most supportive people. Before I ask that question, I must say, the DME people, we understand each other. We understand that everybody's ridiculing us for our memories. We understand that we share something that nobody else literally has in our memories.
Right.
And there are people that could be coming in from other timelines, if that be the case. I'm not setting one theory, but could be people coming in from other timelines, and we comprehend that. We get that. We're easy and patient with each other. We understand how scary it can be at the very beginning.
Right.
A lot of us, not myself personally, I was super, super fascinated and became a junkie instantly. But a lot of people get scared and wrapped up on the couch and balled up and, oh my God, my reality's changing. What am I going to do? So a lot of this community really understands that and comprehends that. It's real easy with each other and real respectful and all that with each other. Well, what was your first reaction when you figured out, begin being a sci-fi person like myself, when you first figured out the ME or found out it was happening and reality was literally changing? Were you balled up on the couch, or were you like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. At first, I wondered if I was the only person that was realizing what was going on with changes around my life. And for a long time, from about the age of 10, like I say, up until just the last year, I almost feel like I was the only person, that I was alone in a world that I saw different, that I had different thoughts, and that I could not share them with anyone. And then when the Mandela effect became, I don't want to say fad necessarily, because to some people, known. That's what I'm sorry.
Became well known.
Right. When that started happening, like I said, when I started looking at the different channels and the people talking about it, right away I started weeding out those that just stayed with the initial effects, because I wanted to know why. And MA made a statement one night in one of his streams. He said, "We've gotten a peek behind the veil. Now we need to take a deeper look." And when he said that, that's when I knew that, at least from his standpoint, This is a man that doesn't just say, okay, yeah, this is cool, things are changing. This is a man that says, there's another reason behind this. And I wanted to know. And that's when it started becoming deeper for me. And then when I started seeing people on here, I was like, man, I remember you guys. I don't have memories of people. You know, where's this coming from? And a lot of people are the same way. I kind of
so go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I've kind of bypassed looking for logo changes, song changes, and that sort of thing, because yeah, they're there and they're always going to happen. But I'm now looking at the other side of it, and I'm trying to be real careful with my stream, not to push people in a direction, like with the time periods talk. I'm trying to go slow with that. Although there are a million things I want to say to people, like, I remember you here doing this, but I can't. You know what I mean?
I've had some interesting times with you and Martha myself, and some interesting memories that have popped in here and there. But that's more on the personal level, and I don't want to put that out in the public. But
sure.
Anyway, so you kind of segued me for my next question, which was perfect. You keep mentioning timelines and time periods and things like that. So what is your theory? Do you think it's multiple timelines, single timeline, reincarnation lines? Like, what is your theory?
Well, it is a theory in progress. I'll say that. I mean, it's a working theory. But if we ignore the time period itself completely and just focus on what's actually going on, in other words, I ignore what I'm dressed in right now, because in different time periods at this very moment, my attire could be anything. What's going on in my life around me, you know, I could be in a timeline where there isn't cars, or a time period where it's back in the 6th century, but it's the circumstances of what's happening that remains the same, not what you see. So in one word, it could be all simultaneous. You know, you're just acting it out in one solid single timeline,
Right?
But it's spaced out. And that's where, like you said earlier, if you make a major decision in a time period like that, it can alter it completely. If you're aware of what you're doing. If you're not aware, I think you repeat it.
Fair enough. So you think it's got a lot to do with repeating timelines and repeating circumstances, and do you have a lot of deja vus and whatnot?
I do, and I think those are skips. I don't think they're necessarily an opportunity for a new memory to come. I think a deja vu feeling is a skip in the timeline. Like if you had a record playing on a record player, and it's a bad place on the record, or the needle's bad, and it just keeps repeating that until you have to go up and manually change it.
Right.
I think that's what deja vu is. You just hit a point in a timeline or a certain period of your life that something seems familiar again, like, hey, I just did that. You know, it's like a skip or a bump or whatever.
I've had quite a few deja vus in my life, really strange ones. They usually don't last very long, though. The last one I remember really having that was a strong one. I was doing the Rockinati show with Unirock, and I looked up over my computer, and he usually has this like multicolored background he always used.
Yeah.
So I was looking up over, and I seen this in my lower vision, and just at 15 seconds or so, everything in the room, where everything was, the colors on the screen, the words he was saying, because he was in a monologue at the time, just everything was deja vu. And
Right.
I was like, wait a minute, I've not been in this moment before. There's not even a question to it. I know this.
Yeah.
There's no way, if it was a reincarnation thing, that we even had the technology back then to be in a moment like that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was a dream sequence that I was reliving, or what the case was. Dreams. Do you think we get a lot of messages and whatnot in dreams, or what are your idea on that while I make this cup of coffee?
Well, obviously, dreams are things that the brain is working on. Everything we've ever learned in our lifetime is stored in our brain. It's still there. People say, oh, well, I've forgotten what I've learned in school. No, you haven't. It's still in your brain. It's just that the brain compartmentalizes things. You have short-term memory, long-term memory. You really only access things that you're using at the present. So old memories, I think the brain will pull out and use those, and you will dream about those things. But I do think that astral projection is a reality. And I do think that some of our dreams are definitely past memories, and possibly, since we do not have to be present in this body to live in a certain time period, we could actually be shifting when we go into that deep REM state of dreaming, that we've actually left and become part of a time period or a timeline somewhere, regardless of how wild the dream is. You know, if you're open-minded enough in your dreams to see things, you have to accept them as a possibility. Because how many times do we wake up from a dream just before we're severely injured or die, you know, and immediately we wake up? That's a protection mechanism to pull you back out of that, in my opinion. That's just a theory I've got on it.
And I like it. I like it a lot. Dreams have really messed with me for years. There's been a couple few that are just so clear and vivid, you know. Like I was telling a story the other day on a stream. For some reason, in my dream, I was running from the cops. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not a criminal. But I've got 5 cop cars chasing me. And somehow I made it to my driveway in my house, got out of the car, got in the house, and then I woke up. But it was so clear and vivid that I literally had to check the driveway just to make sure it wasn't full of cops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a dream I had. It's a real short dream, actually. About 20 years ago, I dreamed that somebody was breaking into my house, and I had a shotgun in the room where I was, and I dreamed they were trying to come in the window, and I dreamed I'd reached for the shotgun, and when I did, I had heard them rack a pump shotgun coming in the house, and I woke up, and when I woke up, I looked around the room and laid back down. And as I just laid back down, I heard the window rattling again. And I reached for the shotgun and I heard them rack a shotgun. And then I raised up a second time and realized that I was still asleep, redreaming that dream.
Oh, wow. It's rare you get double dream in a row like that ever.
Right. And every detail was the same. So I had to sit there for a few moments and figure out if I was still asleep for a third time or not.
You know, I tried to watch that movie Inception. It's a lot like that, a dream and a dream and a dream and a dream.
Yeah.
After about 30 minutes, I said, nope, I done got lost. I've lost the plot entirely. I can't do it. It's really confusing. Yeah. Have you had a lot of visions come to you in dreams?
Some, yes. And that's something that I've been hoping to pursue more of, you know, like with Native American culture of vision quest. I do think that we can access more memories that way, but I think it's difficult because we have so many distractions around us. It's hard to get that total silence or whatever you need to focus. Seems like something always tries to interfere with that, except in a dream. If you're dreaming, your body is already shut down.
Right. And that's so funny because it's like you said, you enter almost a second world when you dream, as if you go to the other yous in different timelines, or maybe one other you in a different timeline. Or one dream that I get quite a bit is I'm in the dark for whatever reason. It's pitch dark around me, and I'm sorting something back and forth. I'm sorting something. It's important. I get these things sorted, and I have no idea what it is I'm sorting.
Yeah.
Recently, it changed up to where I'm standing there holding a piece of paper in front of me, and there's 2 words and in lines like an anagram that I'm trying to figure out. And I never did get it figured out, but it's these work dreams I have quite a bit.
Yeah. 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 It's always like there's an unfinished business that you're always trying to finish, you know, like there's something that you have to do in some of these dreams.
Exactly. And, you know, I'm one of those people that analyzes dreams. What does it have to do with my life? What is the symbology here? What is the symbolic of? What were the words meaning? What am I trying to figure out? But there's, aside from trying to figure out the Mandela effect, which I'm always trying to do, that's my life's work. So, you know, but aside from figuring that out, there's nothing that could have correlated to that particular dream. So I don't know.
Well, you know, it's kind of like connecting the dots of paranormal activity to the Mandela effect. You know, you've got something else going on around you, and is it connected? Like UFOs or cryptozoologist type work. And, you know, do these things have a connection to the Mandela effect, or are they just part of our reality right now?
Right. I think I got somebody in chat that I can't see. Not sure. Have to keep an eye. Anyway, sorry about that. I was seeing if they had any questions for guys. You got any questions for Glenn or me, I guess? Any questions for either one of us? Throw them out there. I'll gladly answer them. I'm keeping up with the chat now, so I'm sure Glenn wouldn't have no problem answering them as long as they're legit questions.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I've got a theory. Well, it's a piece of a theory that I'm working, and it's something I worked on since I was a child. Something I couldn't understand when I was young. Like I said, I started studying paranormal at age 12.
Right.
Something I couldn't understand when I was young is, why does time move slowly one day, double time the next, and a quarter speed the next? And I don't care what they say, you know, oh, it's just your perception of it. You're just busy doing stuff, or you're not, or no. I've been in this office on this job a week. We've been closed. Some days, and I'm doing the same things. Some days, time will not move. Other days, I can't keep up with the clock. And I'm literally doing the exact same thing. Nothing.
Yeah.
So it always bothered me. Why does time do that? Speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. So I had this theory called time bubbles. And my theory is time itself, if you want to call it that, moves in bubbles through the universe. Now, yes, everybody, I get it in the comment section. Time is a measurement of reality. I know that. It is just a measuring tool we all came up with. I'm well aware of this, guys. You don't need to remind me in the comment section. But that said, so I had this theory that time moves in bubbles. Think of the universe, the great big oval universe, just packed full of these soap bubbles, if you will.
Right.
But it's so packed that they can't just sit still. They got to constantly move around. They're being pushed around just by the pressure of the universe. So as they move around the universe and move, say, around Earth or through Earth or whatever you want to call it, that would make the perception of time slow up or slow down or speed up, whatever the case may be, depending on what bubble you're inside.
Right.
And then it also would explain the glitch in the matrix moments where people seem to step outside of time. Whereas, you know, if you get between two bubbles that have just a little notch between them, just ever so much of a notch between them, and you get stuck in that area for even the slightest amount of time, you might have that glitch in the matrix moment where you jumped into the 1800s, or you've lost 6 hours, or whatever the case may be. You know, I've been listening to glitch in the matrix stories for quite a while, trying to put together stuff on that. And it would also, on top of that, explain why, say, time flies when you're having fun. Yeah. So with our emotions, what if we create these energy bubbles, or should I say time bubbles, around ourselves? So when we're in that mood, or the bubble expands around us, where time's a little bit quicker to us than, say, the people over across the street who are just sitting around not really doing a whole lot, as opposed to you. Mm-hmm. And then if you're in a club, the bubble's even bigger. Everybody's energy bubble or time bubble kind of connects together because they're on the same frequency, that energy or that emotion. Right. And the whole club is in a better mood. Then again, you get a mob mentality where people are pissed. Everybody's pissed. It's, again, like they're inside this bubble. And then once the energy or emotion comes down to a normal state, you return to the regular time bubbles, or snap back into regular reality where time's moving at the rate you remember. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It actually makes me want to ask you a question too. Then, do you believe that, with that type of a theory, that we are occupying the body of another living creature, like a symbiotic relationship, where this body is alive in itself, but yet we are what we are mentally in the brain area, and trying to control this thing during, you know, like you said, emotional times. And if the body feeds off of the energy of somebody else, you kind of get caught up in the moment, to use another phrase. So, you know, I heard someone say earlier today, who occupied this before we did, you know, and who's occupying what we were in other time periods. You start chasing that rabbit and put it with the time bubbles, then it really makes your brain sizzle as to, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen now, and what will happen if everybody, like in our streams and in our group, become more awake at the same time, and everybody has the same level of knowledge on it. Then what happens inside that bubble?
Exactly. And hold on, let me read the chat real quick. Oh, it's a dark wolf. Really? Rationally said her and Long Reach 1 actually pose the exact same type of theory. When you speed up time and your bubble time outside would stay the same. Yes, I've come up with this theory when I was 13 or 14 years old and just thought it was probably the stupidest theory ever, but I kind of stuck it in file 13 back there. Excellent, Rash. I'll definitely go check that out. Thank you so much. I'm not the only one who's thought about this. That's awesome. Now, yes, back to your question. It does really make your head sizzle with that, doesn't it? Because it makes you wonder if you can control your time bubble at that point. And if that be the case, could that explain literal single shifts opposed to the mass shifts? And the mass shifts I have a theory on based on the emotions that goes, you know, plays into the time bubble once again. Basically, emotional buildup. And I'm still working this with SMQ and Chick. So this is something that as a team we're working on. I've not got it all beat out yet, guys. So don't beat me down in the comments. I'll let you know when we get the whole theory done. Yeah. But emotional filter theory is what I'm going with. So starting with Suso. Anybody seen Suso stream? He talked about how maybe he didn't talk about it. Maybe we talked about it after. Anyway, he's got this theory that they put out, say, false flags or just the media in general putting out all this negative information, for lack of a better word. Yeah. And then as the information gets put out, people's emotions get worked up and built up and built up and built up. Go ahead, sir. And it gets to a point where this frequency, and it ain't got to be bad emotion. It can be the mix of good, bad, in between, whatever the case may be. Just right. The human collective buildup of emotion. Right. And it's my theory that when it gets to 1.1 terahertz in frequency, why that? Because that's the frequency of the universe, the blinking universe. It blinks on and off 1.1 trillion times a second, as the work done by Richard Lighthouse, if you guys are interested in looking that up. But I think when it reaches that point and that blink happens at that second, it snaps. That's when we shift. That's when whatever we've been focusing on, whatever energy we put into it as a mass, gets sent through into, if you guys ever watched SMQ stuff, he talks about the levels, and one of them's a variable level and then reality level. So it gets sent into that variable level. The variables are set, and it's set into reality. And what I'm going on in this, Mount Rushmore, we were all looking at that mountain. All of a sudden, the eyes pop out. What's the first thing you look at a statue that has eyes is the eyes. Right, right. And we've seen this multiple times. Mickey Mouse, the Mickey Mouse debacle where we had no suspenders, he had a tail, and then all of a sudden he didn't have a tail. You know, everybody was looking at it. And we've seen this multiple times over the years where this has happened. So, to finish this off, the emotional filter theory. Sorry about that. You got an email. I'm on a phone. I can only do so much. Yeah. So when this snaps, it's my theory that the emotions or all the energy is sent back down through the filters on this earth, us, the affected. And because we're empaths, that would be our job, is to take this emotional energy, while half of us get depressed and the other half get excited at a shift. It cancels each other out. Take this energy and re-emanate it or what's the word I'm looking for? Transfigure it back into the environment as love or a happy energy, even a neutral energy, and start out all over again. Get it build up, get built up, get build up, snap, shift. All the changes go in the variable level. We get the energies, we filter it out, start over.
I think we are also superconductors of energy. I've been doing a lot of study into Tesla's ideas and his thoughts on current and some of the things he was leaning towards, which I have to be very careful about what I say about that. But I thought it was you that mentioned the electromagnetic field that is generated within inside the planet itself. Well, there's actually lightning strikes and things taking place within the planet, because we do have ground to air lightning.
Right.
And the frequency of 432 hertz seems to be the most appealing, drawing frequency for the body, which translates to it's a different type of A chord or an A note in music. But that frequency seems to be a conduction frequency of sorts, to transfer energy or to increase it, in my opinion. And if you change those frequency waves from what's within as well as what we generate, I think you can change the dynamics of what we do and how we make decisions. So I hope I'm making sense, trying to say that clear enough. But if that is the case, then we ourselves can become our own power source because of what all is contained within this body. I think someone said one time that everything that exists on the planet exists within the human body anyway. All minerals, all from calcium down to water to even smallest trace elements are in the body.
That's true. That's true. Oh man. So sorry, totally lost my train of thought there. I had to run up and plug in the phone. Yeah, we are stardust. That's pretty much it. We are stardust. We're everything we're made out of, everything else is made out of too. So that is a valid point there. I'm glad you brought up also, I forgot in my theory when I was just explaining it. We radiate energy. We have a single biochemical, bioelectric signature that we radiate all times.
Yeah.
And different emotions different frequencies of energy here, which is why I see it as filters and being more important than the gin pop, if you will. And I'm not saying we're more important than anybody. I'm saying in this theory, we would be the filters. We would have a single job. That's why we would be here, opposed to the gin pop.
Right. Well, if we give off pheromones based on, because of our different emotions, it would make sense that we also give off different frequencies or different types of energy as well.
Absolutely. And then somebody over here in the chat a minute ago said, if your theory is correct, where to go? I mean, just going on your theory, there would have been shifts every minute during World War II. I'm sure everyone had negative emotions then. There's nothing to say that we didn't have no context to put it in World War II. So there could have very well been shifts going on for years and years and years that we'd never noticed. There could have always been the impasse that were chosen. So,
right. Well, think about this too, with all the wars that have taken place and the soldiers that have come back from war and the PTSD, or is it PSTD? One is
post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right. And how they relived the events of those battles or skirmishes or whatever. And if you think about it, they could not just be reliving that memory in their head as well, but unknown to us, they could be back in that situation. And because all we're seeing is, I'm seeing you as the physical. I don't see you visually as who you are. I'm just seeing this body. So if all of a sudden you start having a flashback or a memory and you think that you're in a battlefield situation, I still see you as who you are. But for you, you're back there again and you're reliving and going back through that. And who's to say you haven't literally gone back to that time and are doing that right now.
There's somebody that's working on some stuff like that, dealing with therapy and hypnosis therapy and whatnot, and how a lot of people can like see car license plates and whatnot that they never even looked at during the time of whatever event they're recalling.
Right.
I got somebody looking into that. I'm working the theory on that too, so I don't want to get too in depth. But yeah, the basic idea, you're back there in your head, your consciousness, if you will, is back there. Your body may be here, but your consciousness is elsewhere. And that's like somebody that has schizophrenia. They might be seeing dragons attacking them. To them, that's as real as me sitting here talking to you. Whether we see them or not, to them, that's reality. And they can literally scare them to death. I've seen it happen.
Yeah. You said earlier about the eyes of a statue, that you focus on those. Have you ever noticed that somebody that has a seizure, when you look into their eyes are dead at that point. You cannot make eye contact. You cannot connect with them because their eyes are just, they're glazed over. They're in a different place altogether. And some seizures are physical, but then some of them also are that stress and traumatic disorder that's upon them. And because you can't see their eyes anymore and make that eye contact, they may be gone. And you're just looking at the eye. It's the same thing with a corpse. You can open up the eyelids of a corpse and tell there's no life there right now. It's gone.
Yeah, that's something that's always tripped me out. And, you know, I'm not afraid of death. I have no fear of death. I get what's going on there.
Right.
Whether I go to a reset area where I end up in purgatory or whether I wake up in the bed in another timeline. Either way, something else is going to happen. I don't think it's just game over at death.
No.
So I'm not so worried about death per se. But it's always intrigued me how you can clearly see there's no life there. It's just different. There's an energy that's missing. You get around a corpse, it's just completely, you ain't got to have nobody tell you it's dead. You just be near it. You'll know the energy's not there. The life is not there. The gleam in the eye. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. The gleam in the eye, that's not there. There's just nothing there. And it's so weird to I don't know, just to be around a corpse, I guess, is kind of weird to begin with, but
yeah.
Just the fact that we can pick up on those things. We can sense there's no soul left there. There's no emotion left there. There's no energy there.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed that with my dog. When he has seizures, his eyes become lifeless. And what I look for when he has a seizure is for the life to return back to his eyes. Then I know he's coming out of it. Then he's going to be okay. But for that, however long it lasts, just looking at the eyes, aside from him shaking or drooling and things like that, I can tell where he's at with it. And I think we can do the same thing with individuals, because there are people also that are walking around that we have interactions with that aren't having seizures, but you can look in their eyes and they're lifeless, dead eyes. They're not the same as even right now, looking into this camera and seeing you on my screen, I can focus my eyes to almost where it looks like eye contact with you. And I can tell the difference.
Right.
It's not just a dead screen with an image.
Right. Absolutely. So I want to be real careful here. I kind of preach about this on this channel a little bit. I know you've heard me. We need to be careful when we're saying shells people and NPCs and things like that, because it does kind of dehumanize people. And like people say, oh, it's the guy behind the counter. Guys, I'm one of those guys behind the counter.
Yeah.
My job puts me behind a counter where I work.
Yeah.
So I don't want somebody to come in to, he's just an NPC. He's nothing. He's a shell. We all know I'm not. So we need to be real careful when we classify things like that, because last time population was dehumanized, it did not end well.
Right. Right. Well, too, who knows whether or not someone that we say is unaffected or a shill or an avatar or something, at some point, what's the possibility that body can be inhabited by somebody that's jumped a timeline, jumped a time loop or whatever, and now they are awake inside of what we would have originally called a whatever, and now they're alive to the situation at hand. Because I would dare say that maybe 6 years ago, or 5 years, ago before Nelson Mandela died. Everything I was saying to somebody that is affected, until I became fully awake on it or starting to awake, they probably would look at me and go, that guy's not part of this right now. But then all of a sudden now there's a demeanor change, personality change. You're viewing life differently. And that's where it all starts.
Absolutely. And you're right. Even though we consider them NPC type behavior today, and that's the best I'll do, there's NPC type behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we consider them that today, like you said, maybe there'll be a shift and they'll wake up just as wide awake as we are and have all the knowledge and understand it's real and going on and we're being lied to about all kind of other stuff. You never know. So that's why I say let's be careful. And that's just a public announcement for anybody who's listening. Be careful when you get the NPC thing, because we're all humans. We might not all react the same way, and a lot of the reactions are very questionable at best, I'll agree. But let's be careful how we classify people, because we don't want to dehumanize another human, and we'd like to not be put in that position ourselves.
Right. Yeah, you're right. The truth is we're all occupying the same type of a body. It's just the consciousness within may be awake or may be asleep or may never come. But the body, the human part of the element, we're all the same there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can't explain why the NPC or the spirit blind people act the way they do. I can't. I got some ideas, some sociological ideas, like when they suddenly, what we call downloads might not be downloads. It might be them just, you know what, you're right, just being agreeable, just to get the conversation dropped. It very well could be they're not comfortable talking about these things. So they just become this, let's do something else type deal. I think that's got a lot to do with the behavior that they start to take on after a minute. Or when they have the, what we call the memory change. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I remember that. Oh, no, it was always this. I think they're just trying to get us to shut the heck up. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell on that.
I don't think it's downloads, though. I really don't. That's something that's intriguing, but the more I look at it, the more it's more of a sociological thing to me.
Right. I think we've already, like, and MA is kind of hinted on these lines, but again, you can't really say a whole lot or go into too much depth if something isn't already known here. But I think we come equipped already with all the knowledge we need. And it's just a matter of waking up, exercising that, and growing with it.
Shill, what shill means, just for those in the chat that are wondering, and a lot of people don't know the answer to this question. A shill is generally a person that's paid to make disinformation and dissent in the groups and try to make us turn against people and things like that. A shill is a person who's paid to cause disruption. Short, sweet, and simple. Some of them ain't even paid. Some of them just really crappy at being humans, but that's a whole nother story.
Right. Well, I said this a few weeks back, that a shill can also, you remember the old medicine man, or not the medicine man, but in the Wild West towns where you'd have the wagon pull in and a guy would, yeah, Snake Oil's husband, yeah. But they always had somebody in the crowd that would agree with what they're presenting to excite the crowd to buy more. That's a shill.
The clapper.
Right, exactly. And so, in that light, a shill's a positive thing, but it's also deceiving the people still and disrupting what's going on within the crowd.
But it's still a paid deception, regardless.
Yeah, exactly. It's a paid deception because a lot of that wasn't real anyway. They were shysters trying to sell something and make a buck. So, yeah.
Trying to sell you a bottle of water that's supposed to cure everything known to man.
Yeah. Yeah. And for a brief moment, it does, because it's got that placebo effect to it, to where people think, oh, I feel much better now. No, you don't.
Do you have any theories as to why we get new waves of people? Like, we went a long time and there were no new Mandela effect people, pretty much the same group of people. And then all of a sudden, this last month or so, we've got a huge wave and we've got all these new people in the effect, all these people making videos suddenly, or they've been making videos we literally just found. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we consider how many people have died worldwide, just saying since the Nelson Mandela died again in December of 2013, what if those people that have died, some of them were affected during those early years or beyond, and came back into a different body, and it appears that there's a new wave of people, but maybe it's the same person that's now occupying a different body for consciousness, and they're just coming back in. So it may not be as much new people as it is the same people coming back, which would lead to my idea and thoughts about time periods and recognizing people from different timelines and time periods. You know, maybe they just came back. And when you awake now, the consciousness that was in that body maybe have died. Or now you just occupy a different position, or reincarnation, like you mentioned earlier.
Right. Yeah.
Your mic just went out.
So it's no worse than any theory I got, that's for sure. I'm on a phone, and the way I hold the phone, I hold it with my pinky at the bottom, and it covers the damn microphone.
Oh, yeah. I've done that a lot, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm trying to avoid that, but it's such a habit.
Right.
Yeah, but the people coming in, like, that's one piece of evidence that I just can't reconcile. Because we won't have any waves, and then we'll have a huge wave of big Mandela effects and people show up. Then we'll have nothing, all these little shift. And then months and months later, we'll have a huge shift again. And we'll have these huge effects and another wave of people showing up. I don't know. That's one part that I'm trying to reconcile still. You said your theory is no any I have.
Have you tried to reconcile it to, like, I know you're doing a lot of stuff with, like, the Schumann resonance and all that. Have you tried to reconcile the influx of new people to the spikes in frequency to see if they're about the same?
Okay, so here's the funny thing. Twice this month, and I've only been doing the data for a month or two, so I don't have a solid set yet. I'm still collecting data. But so far, this month has had reverse signatures. Every time there's been a spike, it's reversed what the normal shift signature would be. And I don't know if that means it's a harder shift or whatever the case is, and I need more data to accurately say yay or nay. But It is something I have observed. So I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah. Well, what's the highest frequency that you've seen in that?
I want to say just over 40 was the highest. Last Easter, it hit that, and a couple times randomly it's hit that, but it doesn't hit it consistently.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does the human body maintain like a 5 on the frequency scale?
I'm not sure. I've heard 300, I want to say, for the human body. I've heard all kind of numbers for because you figure the human body has all the minerals in it, all the different organs in it, the blood flow, the emotions. There's a whole lot of frequencies adding up there. So I think it would be something like 300 or a little bit higher like that.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that high. But it makes you wonder about, like, how they can do ultrasound procedures now for, like, kidney stones and crush the stone with the waves and the frequency, and then it's easier to pass it, and so much stuff affects you that way. Like
probably because they reach that resonant frequency of the stone opposed to the organs around it or any other part of the body, and that's probably what makes it disperse, just like a glass breaking when resonant frequencies hit.
Yeah. You know, one thing that comes to mind, though, is we talk about EMPs and how they could affect everything that's computer oriented and shut it down and cause, you know, just a mass apocalypse, if you will. And then you wonder about those frequencies and whether or not they can completely stun the consciousness or the mind as well if something like that happens. You know, and just totally not just disorient someone, but completely shut down the body and just based on a wave alone, bring about death instead of actually having to have, you know, a physical weapon like a gun or a bomb, just the frequency itself to do that much damage.
Right. Patrick, if you could repeat the question, I'll keep the chat open so I can see it. I don't remember, or I'm not able to go back all the way to that point right now in the stream. So if you could repeat the question, I'm going to leave this up where I can see it. I apologize, Patrick. Could you repeat, or Patrick, Glenn, could you repeat what you just said?
Oh, what I just said.
Yeah.
I was talking about the EMPs and how they can shut down, or even solar flares, how they can shut down anything that's computer controlled, or like even your car. The cars today are built in such a way with the technology that's in them that an EMP going off would shut down a car unless it was pre-1970 or whatever. So I was kind of alluding to the idea that what if a frequency type weapon could not only just disorient someone, but shut down their entire body and wipe out areas of population just with a wave that, unless you're tracking those waves, if someone had that ability, you talk about a sneak attack like Pearl Harbor, you know, you can send out something into a whole nation or an area and completely annihilate the body at that point. Which, if that's the case, you're looking at a very dangerous situation with, like with the stories of CERN and the D wave and all that sort of thing. You're looking at a very dangerous situation if you should be able ever to open a portal or a black hole, which there's discrepancies that people have on that. The damage it could do as far as the human body is concerned.
Oh, it could tear us apart. And like you said, if it could reach the frequency of the human body and match all the frequencies of the human body, we could have everything from teleportation to instant death. That's an interesting thought right there. If we could match the resonant frequencies, then perhaps that could have a larger effect on the human body, because we know the human does. We know without question the human affects the human body. The astronauts, actually, if you believe in space, I get it. Some don't, or it's not flat. It is flat. I don't care. We're not arguing that.
Yeah. Well, see, now you're getting into the talk of like Tesla's death ray. You're getting into a position where this could be far more dangerous than a nuclear bomb could ever think of being.
Yes.
Even though it's still a nuclear reaction, because anything that causes a change like that, it's a nuclear reaction. But it's not the same fallout with all the radiation and that kind of destruction, because it would just destroy whatever frequency that you're targeting.
That's interesting. Yeah, it makes me wonder now. I'm going to have to do some deeper stuff on frequency. I've studied quite a bit of it, as you know.
Yeah.
The 440, 430 hertz, the music thing, when they changed over the music to a different hertz to mess with people's heads and this, that, and the other. What was it, 1920s or 30s? They reassigned music tune to what, 440 in it now?
Yeah. The standard tuning now is 440, A440. And the 432 is just, it's still an A, but it's got that little variance to it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm going to really have to relook into frequency and like frequencies of HARP. And that's another thing I'm really intrigued by, is the whole HARP program and frequencies of D-Wave and all they're working on. I know the magnetic production of CERN, when it's running, is something like 10,000 times the magnetic field of Earth.
Right. Right. See, I'm leaning towards strongly that there's the possibility that if all these loops and all these intersecting of time periods means you're still in the same place, I'm looking at the possibility of a theory that you can actually ride the wave, so to speak, and put yourself back into whatever past situation you were. And if you change that, you change your present and you change the future. But the only way you can change it is by changing the past. So if you can use your own knowledge and abilities and ride that wave backwards in time, and change things, or even just go back there and stay if you wanted to. Yeah, I don't know exactly what would take place where you are. Somebody else may occupy your body while you're gone. I don't know. Maybe that's why we shift like we do, or suddenly appear around people we know forever to be different. Maybe it's because whoever was here before in my body shifted to a different time period and decided to stay. So I shifted into here. And so there's all kinds of possibilities with frequencies changing things.
Deja vu. Holy crap. I feel like I've lived this moment like 3 times. All right. Anyway, sorry about that. Like, for real, not even exaggerating. That's crazy. Wow. The way you're set on the screen right now, what you were saying, the frequencies, everything. Really weird. Anyway, I don't have a whole lot of those, so that's pretty cool. I was going, how would you conduct an experiment like that? Like, this sounds brilliant. I would love to do something like that. How would you find a way to conduct an experiment where you could ride the wave to the past?
Well, I got my theory started from a movie that was made. You remember Christopher Reeve, or Reeves, depending on how people remember him, the Superman of the 1978 movie. He's the guy, the actor that had that horse accident while he was doing a jump with a horse and damaged his spinal cord and became paralyzed. He made a movie with Jayne called Somewhere in Time. And it was about a man who, he loved this woman back in a different time period. And he even got the traditional clothing, went to the same motel where, I'm trying to remember exactly how the plot goes. He went to the same motel where they were in that time period, went to the same room that he had or she had, and went through this process to go back in time, which is, it's a little different than what my theory is, but he also put a penny in his pocket of his traditional clothes for that time period, so that if he reached in and grabbed that penny, it would make him remember where he's from, what time period, and he would instantly be gone back. And of course, in the plot of the movie, it's romanticized to where he met her, they were together, and then he just happened to put his hand in his pocket by accident and pull out the coin, and he was like, no, what am I doing? And it was too late. He was back in his original time period.
Is this the time traveler's wife?
No, it's called Somewhere in Time. It's Christopher Reeve. Somewhere in Time. And Jayne Seymour. If you get a chance, watch it.
It sounds familiar. It sounds like something I've at least heard of, if not watched.
Right. Right. And I think you have to be able to focus on a specific thing or event in your past that from a memory standpoint really, truly happened. And if you can eliminate the distractions and get on that frequency, and I think it's going to be a different frequency for individuals, I think you can do that. And I think you can also do that with individuals that were part of that period. So say you and I had a memory of being in the Civil War, and we kind of had a memory of being familiar to each other during that time period.
Right.
If we found a common bond, a certain event, a certain time that we both remembered specifically, we could possibly, in my opinion on this, and it's just an opinion, we could possibly focus on that to the point that we could go back to that period. It may become a dream-like event, or it may result in a coma state or something like that here in the present. But a dream reacts differently as far as time is concerned to what's going on. Once you hit that REM state, the things that are processing in your mind are actually going, I believe, slower than the reality around you.
Right.
And so if that is the case, in a dream state, you could slow down the time that's passing in your dream to the point of living out what would seem like weeks, months, maybe even a lifetime. And I think you have to access that part of your consciousness to do that. Your body's not going to go. I really don't believe your body will ever go into a different time period as far as time traveling is concerned. but the consciousness, I think, can. So that's where I'm working on that idea and that theory, is to be able to project my consciousness back into a vivid, real memory.
Like I said, I got somebody who's doing some work with therapy right now, who is a trained therapist who's actually kind of working on that exact same type thing. Somebody going into the past in the consciousness and making a change, and then coming back to this time and seeing if anything's changed or whatnot. I've got some experiments running as we speak on that. A couple of therapists, or at least one therapist that I know of. Before I forget, Patrick was nice enough to retype his entire question, and I thank you for that, Patrick. I did say I would get to it. For instance, if I'm walking from the back of my truck and I leave reality, anyone that sees me, I disappear. And by the time I get to the front of my car, I'm back in reality. I see blackness, another reality. So that would go back into the time bubble theory, and literally stepping just for a second outside of time before the next bubble catches you and brings you back into reality, or back into this time stream, if you will, in my opinion.
Right.
That's what I would take from that, personally. Right. What do you think?
To me, it kind of brings up do you know who David Pilates is?
I love his work. Sing 411 in the national parks. I love David Pilates' work. What
if those people that are never found step outside of reality, or step outside of time, or they go through a dimensional change, or maybe something like a portal, and they're just gone. They've translated into a different time entirely. What Patrick's saying, how many times has people felt like, well, I thought somebody was walking up behind me, and you turn and there's nobody there.
Right.
Maybe they were there, but at that, before you could turn to see them, they shifted like that and they're gone. Or, either by accident or maybe purposely, they knew they could do that and disappear without being seen. There's a wide variety of answers or ideas for this, but the general public views any idea as being off the wall and lame and crazy or whatever. They just don't have that open-mindedness to accept anything that is possible.
You're right. They've been taught this is the way it is. That's the way things are. History set in stone. Nothing can change, and that's all a lie. Yeah. You're right, though. It could be very well. There's portals or a thinning of the veils in places that happen to be national parks. There's been a couple people show back up, like miles away or way up on a cliff they could have never got to. Or I don't know if you heard about the recent story. The guy in New York, he was a skier and just disappeared off top of the mountain and reappeared in California 7 days later with the exact same clothes that he had on and everything. Had no clue how he got there.
Right. Well, it makes you wonder about the stories that as children you read in school, and like the stories of Rip Van Winkle, or some of the things that I can't think of the author's name now. Washington Irving wrote that, and the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and those books. It makes you wonder, or even J.R. Tolkien's.
Tolkien's work's amazing. Yes.
Yeah. A lot of stories are based on a little bit of truth and a little exaggeration added to it. But it makes you wonder about all those stories and how they connect into the people that appear or disappear in one state, and now they're over here in another state. I've had experiences like that where I found myself in a different room, and I'm thinking, how did I get here? What am I doing? And those experiences at first are unsettling. They're very unnerving. Like if you're driving a car, like it's almost like a hypnosis type effect. When you're driving a car a long distance, you almost go from, like, say, 7 miles into the trip to 20 miles later, and you don't remember the 13 miles in between that you just drove.
Right. And I've had that happen so many times, even driving across town or right up the road. Well, wait a second. Things look different. What's going on here? Where am I? I know I ain't drove that far yet. I ain't had enough time.
Right. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't even have a theory for that, to be honest about it. I just know what happens.
And I think back to the time and that, and just kind of being in a time bubble where you're in your own time for a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It makes you wonder when you go through stuff like that. It makes you wonder what's the rest of the world going through when you do that. You know, how do other people react? Scotty Baylo and I were talking, I guess maybe over the last week or so, about the thought of how many of us, when we consider the rest of the world, have entertained the idea that maybe the rest of the world doesn't even exist, that what exists is what's around you, that when you watch news events or things on the internet, that they're just manufactured in front of you now, but maybe all these other places just they're not even real. You know, you just have to get a grasp on the whole planet to figure out how much is there and how much isn't.
See, I feel too much like Tom Cruise. I mean, I feel like too much of a narcissist when I try to think like that. Just, I'm the only one. You all exist in my head, and reality is only what I make of it because it's what I'm thinking. For me, I got to disagree with that particular thing. That sounds too narcissistic, and that's just my opinion.
It does, but it also leads a little bit of accountability to the individual, if that is a plausible theory, because if everybody is doing that, if everybody's living their own reality, then it brings accountability into play as to how you're doing your reality, how you're affecting others or what you're doing to others. And I don't want to make it sound like that if something happened to another individual that it's okay. It's not, but it just brings more of an individual responsibility to your consciousness and your awareness of your own reality. But I'm not sure that I would lean into that. But it's an interesting thought. Trying to look here at the chat and see where everybody is. I'm gonna have to go to my magnifier chair. I don't hear you anymore, Dark Wolf. I don't know if you're talking or not. Maybe potty time. So nobody else is hearing Dark Wolf talk? Yeah, the open exchange of ideas and info. Yeah. And I think Wake Up News said something above that. Yeah, we all have a piece of the puzzle to bring to the table, and we all need to share our experiences to move forward. Yeah, exactly, definitely. His icon is gone. Okay. Okay, Therian Knight says no, don't hear Dark Wolf. Okay. Yeah, I don't even know how many people's actually still watching this. It looks like Joanna left and went bye-bye. Hot tub time machine.
All right, we still there?
Yeah. I was trying to go through the chat. Steve Raybon had a comment way up in the chat, and it said, suppose a washing machine had a squeak at a certain frequency. I kind of think of that kind of situation as how you can be kind of like we're talking about driving in your car and you all of a sudden you're out of it and don't remember the last several miles. There could be frequencies all around us that you know, we just kind of go into a daze. I mean, we've all had those things, like at work, especially in a factory. I've seen people in a factory at work doing their job. All of a sudden, they're frozen and they're just standing there, and they're not really resting or loafing. They're just, for whatever reason, just in a daze. And that could be what Steve Rabon was talking about with an inadvertent noise from a washing machine, that there may be certain frequencies that just happen naturally that cause us to be pulled out for a moment.
It very well may, and that's not out of the realm either. That's very, very plausible. Like I said, I want to switch this up just a little bit before we have to cut this thing short. So you're a Sasquatch hunter, right?
Yeah, right.
And what got you into Sasquatch hunting?
Well, my grandmother was the first person I ever heard talk about them. And interesting enough, it's in the same area that I do a lot of my research. She saw one on 3 consecutive nights. She used to ride a pony to a mill late at night to grind flour and stuff. And something would follow her from the mill site back out the road to the little town. And when she described it, it was described a little differently than a Sasquatch, but it was close enough. And then the movie Mysterious Monsters came out, and this was in the 70s, 77 or 76. I think it was 77. And when I first saw on the big screen the footage of the Patterson Gimlin film of Patty, the female Sasquatch, walking across at Bluff Creek, right, that was it. I knew what my grandmother was talking about. I saw that, and that's all it took. And from that point on, I was, I even got my dad to take me to the areas where she had her encounters, and that's where my very first encounter took place. Was not long after that, actually, and it was more of of hearing them than it was seeing them. Hearing them actually try to speak or argue in that primate type language. It was right. My very first encounter.
So, how long have you been hunting them since then?
Well, if I backdate it and consider how many times I've been in the woods ever since that, it would be from 1977 to now. So, 23 and 18, 41 years, and the last 7 or 8 years more intensively, I would say.
So do you have certain spots you go to, or you got to go out of state, or are they around Kentucky a whole lot, or like kind of the area they're in?
Well, I'll show you. Let me turn this light on real quick. I'll show people exactly where it is.
That's even better.
Camera. Let me get the light switched around, get this out of the way, and I'll pick up my camera and I'll show you. I've got 2 main areas, and I disagree with a lot of Sasquatch people on how many there actually is in existence. A lot of people think there's one behind every tree. There's not.
Right.
I think overall in my state, can you see the map? Let me pull back out a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's kind of difficult to do, but
we can see
here. I am right here in my state. Okay. My research area is down south on the interstate into this area. This green area right here that you can see is the Daniel Boone National Forest. And the majority of our state, all the sightings kind of occur on this side towards Virginia and West Virginia. There's some up around my area, not many. But I hold to a theory that there are, with Sasquatch, that there is family groups, and then there are loners. Because once a group of primates, once a young male primate gets to the age of trying to take over the troop, the alpha male will pretty much kick them out. And so what my theory is that in a family group of Sasquatch, you may have a family group of 4. I don't think we need more than 5 personally, but you may have 4 or less in a family group. And if one of those is a male Sasquatch, they're going to be on their own. And I think that's where you see some lone sightings in areas of the state where you're thinking, what are they doing there? I think it's where they're traveling, the single loner male looking for his own family unit or to start. And then you have the family groups associated in certain areas that have to be able to support a large animal like that. And so in our state, those areas that border West Virginia, Virginia, and Tennessee, they're more mountainous. They have more of a tropical feel to them because Kentucky gets a lot of rain, and we have a lot of rivers and creeks and miles and miles and miles of water frontage and shoreline. That's what I'm trying to say. So overall, I think Kentucky may have anywhere from 10 to 35 Sasquatch. And I differ with a lot of researchers in that area because a lot of the guys you'll see on YouTube or on different websites will say, "Oh, there's hundreds of them out there." No, there's not. There's not that many. Just like the lowland gorilla, the silverback gorilla. When they were found.
Have you ever found any like solid like hair or footprints or like pre-chewed food or even like a meal half disturbed or whatever?
I have found, outside of a couple of really good footprints that I did not have any casting material at the time to cast, I did find just the other day, actually I haven't uploaded the video, I found on my backpack, there was a Velcro strip on my backpack. And as I was walking through, I was doing a live stream actually for a Mandela effect while I was out in the woods. This is when it happened. As I was walking through that Velcro strap through, there was a lot of briars and things that I was going through. It caught something and I reached down and pulled on it. And when I did, I pulled it up and looked at it. It looked like hair. And I'd already touched it, so I've already contaminated it. Right. And I put it in my pocket. And when I pulled my hands back out of my pocket a couple of different times as I was leaving, I dropped it. So it's kind of like you remember in the Jaws movie when the first Jaws movie, when Richard Dreyfuss dove down under when they were out on the water and they found the boat of that fisherman. He goes down underwater, scuba diving, pulls that tooth out of the wreckage. And then all of a sudden the dead body comes into view from a hole in the hull and he gets scared and drops the tooth. And he has no evidence that there's a big shark. That's kind of like what just happened to me.
Those moments.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right. But I would dare say that I'll never have that opportunity again to find something that could have been hair.
So you said your grandmother had a personal experience where she's seen a squatch. So have you personally had any experiences like that? And if so, could you tell us about it and ramble on for about 2 or 3 minutes while I put this stuff up?
Oh, I can definitely ramble. Yeah, I'll start with the last sighting. The very last sighting I had was in 2016. I went with a friend of mine. Well, he became a friend. He was a Sasquatch researcher. And we went to an area that's 9,000 acres. And it's some of the highest, steepest terrain in the state. It's not quite over to the borders of those other states, but 9,000 acres. We hiked 7 miles back in on these trails. And while we were going across one of the ridge tops, coming back out to Glebe, we saw what looked like maybe the size of a small bear rolling in the dirt. And I stopped and was watching it, and then it saw us, and it jumped up on 2 feet. and jumped behind a tree and was peeking out from the tree. And the way the sun was positioned, the sun was at its back, so the sun was in our eyes as we were trying to make it out. And it kept looking back and forth at us. And while it was doing that, I caught the sight of a larger one. The first one was about, we estimated at 4 to 5 feet tall because we did a recreate. The taller one, after we did our recreate, had to be close to 8 feet tall. It came in.
Wow.
It was standing within 20 yards of the small one, and we were about 75 to 80 yards away from it total. And I looked over. Well, my friend said, "What's this one trying to do to us?" And I looked over at him and I said, "Which one?" And he hadn't seen the big one yet. He was still looking at the little one. And he turned around and looked at me, and his eyes were about that big around. He said, "What do you mean, which one?" And I said, "Well, over here's the mom." So he turns around and he's looking, and he's like, "Oh my God, what do we do?" And I said, "Well, whatever we do, we don't go towards the little one." You know, if mama's come in to distract us, we're not going towards the little one anymore. We need to leave. So we watched it for about 20 minutes. The mama just stood there motionless, but the little one started shaking a tree at us. It was behind a tree about that big around, and it grabbed it and started shaking it back and forth at us. So we walked back, and they went back into the woods, but they followed us all the way back out. And they never got close enough to get a visual again, but they stayed close enough that we could hear them walking to see where we were going. And 2 weeks later, I've got on my Squatch Investigator YouTube channel and on my Facebook page, I've got all kinds of pictures and little snippets of how hard it was to video these things. Because we did video and we did take pictures. But 2 weeks later, when we did our recreate, we were walking out as it got dark. You know, we decided to stay as late as we could. As we were coming out, this is really cool, Dark Wolf. This was one of the most awesome experiences I've ever had squatching. We saw what looked like a blue haze on top of the ridge top, and we thought it was just fog rising from the cooling of the temperature and the sun having dropped. So we thought that what was going on was just a haze from that. And as we started going back towards the original sighting place, the haze was gone. We don't know what that was. It was like a blue cast. And we went back, we started going down the mountain leaving, and my buddy twisted his ankle and fell. And I thought for sure, you know, that far out in the woods, we were in a survival situation, you know, I have to get him out. So when he twisted his ankle, and this rock about the size of a football went over top of our heads and ricocheted off of about 3 or 4 trees, or maybe more than that, and just hit with such force that it didn't hit the tree and drop. It just kept bouncing off trees, and it was thrown. So when that happened, we knew right then and there that they were back. So that startled us enough that we forgot all about me putting out a trail cam in the spot where we saw them 2 weeks earlier. So we went down about another 50 yards, and then I said, we forgot the trail cam. And the incline on that hill was about a 45-degree angle or steeper. So my buddy couldn't go back with me. He couldn't climb back up that hill with his ankle twisted. So I had to be the one to go back and get the camera. And I had to go back to the location where the rock came from. And so he said, well, I'll shine a light on you as long as I can keep it on you. But then after that, you're on your own. So I go walking back up the mountain towards the direction that the rock came from, and got out of his spotlight after a while to where he couldn't follow me anymore. And I had to go around this ridge top and retrieve that camera. And when I did, when I grabbed the camera, my thoughts was, what if what threw the rock is still here? And because they have the ability to see at night and I don't, they're not moving. They're not afraid. So I got the camera and got home. And when I put the card in the computer and saw the time signature of when the camera was activated, it was within 20 minutes of me going back to get the camera that it took 3 night shots. One of the shots had eye shine from 3 different figures. You had one that was about 8 feet tall, one that looked like it might have been about 7 feet tall, and the other one could have been the smaller one. And those pictures I've got on my pages right now. You can view them and see them. And that eye shine was triggered, when they triggered the camera. Of course, anything that triggers a trail cam has to be within pictures I've got on, 30, 40 yards of the camera. Some cameras.
Hold on a second. All right, go ahead. My apologies. I was trying to grab the chat on the computer, and the stream was talking double there.
Oh, okay. But you know how trail cams work. They trigger what comes into view, and once they do that with their sensor, even the background also is taken into the picture. So there's that certain distance that has to be tripped. And what that showed me was, and immediately it made my heart pound and chills on my back. It told me that when I grabbed the camera, that they had, whatever created that eye shine had to still be right there, and maybe even triggered the camera within moments of me grabbing it. So I was that close to something and never saw it, and they never moved.
Right.
So that's the scariest encounter. But if they wanted to kill a person, they could, no doubt about it.
Wow. Can you hear me good now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
All right, because I switched systems. I'm on a computer now instead of the phone. So you've seen them. You've had encounters with them. They've thrown rocks at, which is kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think they are? Do you think they're a species that survived from way back when and just never evolved? Or do you think they're a new species, an alien species? What's your take on them?
Well, my theory on it is that if you look at the classification of primates, of course, man is listed as the top primate. And then you have gorillas, you have the orangutans, and then the classification for pan, which is chimpanzees, and then below that you have gibbons and all the other subspecies that go way on down to the smaller monkeys. I think that they are a step below us, and the primate scale. I could be wrong. They could actually be more advanced than us as far as their skills out in the woods and how to cope with things out there. But I do think that they are intelligent, more intelligent than other primate species, to the point that they may be able to even interact, like birds can mimic and speak. They may be able to mimic people and copy language, because there are recordings of the, and I've heard them audibly too as well, chattering. And and they can spike from a 5-octave span. They can go from a very low resonance without a breath straight up to almost a supersonic level, hearing wise, and even do the kind of sound like when elephants walk, how they can hear the vibrations of other elephants walking, whereas a human ear can't. I think they can create different frequencies of communication that way. So
you think they have their own created or were born with or whatever?
I missed the first part of that.
Language. Do you think they have their own language then? Do they communicate or born knowing or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I definitely do. If you go on YouTube, look up Sierra sounds from Ron Moorhead. It's back in the 70s. And that is the type of chatter that I heard when my dad took me to where my grandmother had encounters. And I've never heard it again. I mean, I've heard a little bit of chatter maybe months later, because there is an interesting story there, but I don't want to get into that.
Right.
But as far as all the time I've been looking for them, I've only heard that kind of communication between 2 or more that one time, to where I knew that it was something. And when that happened with my dad, once their language got deeper, more aggressive, to where it became threatening and was just echoing throughout the woods, my dad looked at me and told me to walk out ahead of him. And he said, when you get about 100 yards away, I'll turn and follow. And I knew right then and there that he was putting himself in the position to intercept whatever was making that chatter in case it should come after us. So I knew it was serious. So I went on and left, and he followed me. And they never followed us. But I'll never forget that noise and of speech. And Ron Moorhead in the Sierra Sounds on YouTube, that is the closest recording of speech that's out there of what they sound like.
Gotcha. I'm definitely going to look into that later, albeit I ever have the time to.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this then. Why are they the world's best hide and seek? Why can we not just go into any wood line and find a Sasquatch?
I was hoping you'd ask me that. I believe in a translucent hair theory. A lot of animals do possess it, like similar to what like a reptile can do, you know, like a chameleon. They can change their body color to whatever the color is of the rock or tree or whatever they're on. I think a Sasquatch has translucent hair. And as a top predator, that means that they can just barely shift their body, and the way the light catches the fur, it can make them look like they've disappeared, or it can make them look like they've blended into the background. Because there's a lot of reports of people that see them walking, and they try to get the film footage of it, and then they're like, well, where did it go? Well, all you would have to do with translucent hair would be to stop and turn and let the light reflect off of you in a different manner. It's a natural camouflage. You know, like diamondback rattlesnakes. You know, they blend in with the ground. They blend in with the leaves. You know, and I think they have that hair. I don't think they can control it. I think they know when they've blended in, though.
Gotcha. Just from the reaction of their prey, most likely. Somebody in chat's mentioning skinwalkers, and that kind of reminds me of another question. Is there much Native American lore on the Sasquatch or creatures that would match that description?
Oh yeah, yeah. They're considered another tribe, actually, by a lot of Indian tribes, and they're also considered to be like the master of the wilderness or the great teacher of the wilderness. They're highly respected, but then there's also the stories in Native American culture where they did not want their children out after dark, or the wild man would get them. I had one friend suggest that the people that have gone missing in national parks may be the victims of easy prey for a Sasquatch, that they may catch people and eat them. And it would certainly be a lot easier to catch and kill a person than it would a deer or an elk. You know, you look like an easy meal when you're walking around in the woods by yourself.
Well, my only problem with that, and agreed there may be some of those cases, I'm not saying.
Right.
But that doesn't explain why the ones that do show back up never mention a Sasquatch or any other type creature either.
Right, right. Yeah. And I agree. There may be few and far between cases where something like that happens, or they may get more aggressive if someone takes a shot at one of them.
Right.
You know, or they just feel threatened. But overall, I think their intelligence level is so high that they recognize something that is so similar to them that they wouldn't kill them to eat them. You know.
So why haven't we found any, and I'm not trying to discredit your work by any means when I ask these questions, why haven't we found any bodies or like a dead Sasquatch laying somewhere in the woods? Or
well, there have been studies done by I think Tennessee University, filmed with a time-lapse photography a carcass of a deer laying on the ground, and in a short matter of time, you see where the scavengers come in and eat the, you know, like possums and different things, and eat the body. Then in comes the insects and starts devouring it, and then the bones themselves, rodents and squirrels and animals that need calcium will eat the bone. And it was just a very short matter of time, and that deer was completely gone. And all the times that I've been hunting or doing research out in the wild, I've never come across a full body skeleton intact of any animal, unless it was a roadkill or a hunter killed it and couldn't find it. But just of natural causes, I've never found it. And black bears the same way. There's so many. We've got probably about 400 or 500 black bear in the state now. I've never found a bone from a black bear yet.
Gotcha. It does make sense. They just got devoured, or nature took its course and got rid of the evidence for anybody ever found it. That makes sense. I really don't have any more things about that per se. Okay, somebody who would be looking to get into the Sasquatch field or into Sasquatch hunting, would you have any advice for people like that?
Oh yeah, one of the things I always tell people now is, with the ability to take your phone and the location of the phone, when you like access Google Maps, it'll show exactly where you are. So if you tell somebody ahead of time where you're going, that's the big one. Tell them where you're going to look. And then if you get lost in there, well, you got your phone and you can use a compass app or whatever you need to get back out. And also, if you do your research correctly before you go into an area, get on the satellite view of Google Maps and look at the area that you're going to be in and keep it within like a 2-mile radius. That way, if you get lost, you remember, okay, well, I saw this stream on the satellite view. I know where I am. And if you should not come back out, someone knows that you're within a 2-mile radius of that spot. It's kind of like it's more of a survival thing than it is a Sasquatch thing. Because a lot of people just have accidents that are, you don't prepare for an accident. They just happen. And if one happens, you want to be able to be found or get out. And then, of course, as far as Sasquatch is concerned, use common sense and be safe. If you feel like you're in a situation where something is threatened, back out. Don't run back, just walk out. If you run, you trigger that chase instinct in any animal that's a predator. So you want to walk out.
Gotcha. Okay, so jumping back to the Mandela effect topic for just a moment. I know we're kind of all over the board tonight. People who have just found the Mandela effect or just starting to research it and understand what's going on, do you have any advice for those type people?
Yeah, and it's advice that's been given to me. Be careful what you say, because you don't want to start out as soon as you see something just so excited with it that you just start blasting it out to everybody, or if you have memories triggered, because you can put yourself in a bad position with those around you. Like right now, I've got a situation where, like I was explaining earlier tonight, my wife and family they're scared of this, and so it's part of the problem now. So I should not have shared with her as much as I did, because it put a fear there. And when you're sharing with other people, you don't want to plant seeds in their mind to cause them to think that they see an effect or remember a time period. You want to say just enough to let them build on it and grow on their own, if that makes sense. Because I could tell you right now where I think I remember. I'm sorry?
You don't want to influence the outcome.
Right. Like if I share with you a memory that I have of you or something in a time period and give that over to you, well, your brain's going to absorb that, what I just said, and it's going to be processed in there. You may go to sleep and dream what I just told you and think it's a memory and not think of it as, well, Glenn just said this, and now you're thinking it's real. So, right. And whether it is or not, it's because it's been planted into your mind. Right. So if it's truly there, you'll remember it. And if we interact and talk, you'll be like, wow, I remember that, off of just the keyword, not necessarily the whole thing. So,
I fully agree. We got to be careful not to plant memories, especially when asking about needs. Fully agree. I did some research on confabulation, and in confabulation, one of the things it says is you can't do that. You can't trigger a memory that wasn't there. You can't plant a memory under confabulation anyway. So even if they want to say we're confabulating and planting memories, that don't happen. Read your own literature.
Right, exactly. Well, I've had people ask me, if you remember it from a different time period, how did I die? Well, sorry, I'm not going to. If I know that, I'm not telling you that. You know, you know. And some people there's a couple time periods that I have memories of people watching me die, right. And I don't want to tell them that either. You know, I don't want to trigger anybody to a memory, because the last thing you want to do is have someone try to alter present reality to keep that cycle from happening without a common working towards that. You know, I can't, just because I remember something about you, I can't try to change your life without your agreeing or being part of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's where you have to be really, really careful about what you say. And also there's things out there that I honestly believe, whether we call it AI or watchers or unaffected or whatever label we want to put on it, if they hear too much coming out of our mouths, we target ourselves. And I'm not sure of the extent that something could go to stop us, to be honest. Maybe that's how we shift.
You know, it might be. I'm not opposed to any ideas at this point. I really ain't.
Yeah.
Why is it that we, in your opinion, that we lose our memories when we cross the veil?
Well, I think it's more of a traumatic event. I've seen a lot of movies that have hinted at memory loss with time traveling. You remember the Bruce Willis movie, 12 Monkeys?
I know what you're talking about, where they go back in time, insurance agents.
Well, in this one, he's trying to go back and stop a virus from spreading.
12 Monkeys. Okay.
Yeah. And there's photographs of him in different time periods. Like the one lady that he interacts with in the film, she looks at a photograph and sees him in like a World War I or World War II battlefield situation, and realizes that he is what he is. You know, he's traveling time, and he's also, I think, in the movie carrying a slug inside his body from World War II as well. But you know, the memories get clouded, I think, because of it just being such a traumatic experience of shifting, you know, because if you're just a consciousness coming into a physical body each time, it's like rebooting a computer, in my opinion. You're rebooting the brain to be able to access it and interact with it. So that could be it.
Could very well be. I've got a couple of different theories and ideas on that, but traumatic I like the best. That's probably the best explanation I've found so far. Either that or we're meant to learn lessons that we can, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you first became aware of the effect and you got past the initial shock of, I'm not crazy, this is really happening, it's traumatic at that point as well. You know, maybe not to that level, but it's an eye opener, and you're just hoping that everybody else around you sees the same thing. I think we are froze again.
All right, I think we're back. I got some goof. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you breaking up a little bit.
All right, we're still trying to load in the internet, I think. Go ahead and close this out. Maybe that'll cruise.
Yeah, I can't tell what you're saying now. I'm wondering.
All right. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Perfect. I was just about to wrap the Mandela effect and Sasquatch. I think you got multiple.
You have to say that again. Your stream buffered on me.
All right. Check 1 2 1 2.
All right. You're there.
All right. So where can people get a hold of you? I apologize, guys. Where can people get a hold of you? Where can they see your work? You got like double YouTube pages, right?
Yeah, I've got a personal YouTube page where I just put music playlists on there when I want to listen to music, and then I've got this YouTube channel for this, and then I've got a Squatch investigator Glenn Mink's page for Sasquatch and wildlife research on YouTube, and Facebook page for it, and I'm also on Patreon.com as Squatch investigator Glenn Mink. So you can find me on any of those, and I've got videos uploaded, and I never tell people that they're looking at something. I always just say, you decide with the evidence, just present it. You tell me what you think.
Absolutely. I agree. For those that don't know, we also do have a PayPal. If you would like to donate to the channel, you're more than welcome to. We're made from money to donate. If you like what you're seeing and want to donate to the streams and help keep the channel rolling, we'd more than appreciate it. I will be in the description box after the show, so those that are watching it on replay, it should be down in the description box right now. So thanks to everybody for being here. We very, very, very much appreciate it. Glenn, any last words before we close out?
Just the only thing I can say as far as the affected is concerned, just keep supporting one another and keep the unity going, because that's what's going to keep us strong. That's what's going to keep us supporting each other and not losing our minds over this, staying what we need to be.
Gotcha. Your face shifted. I got a whole bunch of dark wolf messages all of a sudden right here in a row. Choppy sounds good now. Face shifting like Bigfoot. Nice.
There you go.
I would like to thank everybody for coming by. Thank you, Glenn, for hanging out with us and coming over. You're more than welcome to come back anytime you like. Just shoot me an email. We'll gladly get together and hang out and do another stream. I don't think we got to half the topics we wanted to at this point.
No, I think you and I could talk for a long time if we wanted to.
I have a feeling you're dead right, because I could keep coming up with questions and things to talk about, and especially when it comes to reincarnation and past lives. We could do a whole show just on that.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely have you back on here again. So you guys got something to look forward to there. Glenn will be back at his leisure. I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by and hanging out with us tonight. It's been an absolutely wonderful show. I've had a blast. I know you guys have from the looks of the chat. I will be coming back on perhaps. No, I won't be coming back on tonight. I'll be back on tomorrow. Hopefully, if I got something to talk about. And that's it. So thanks for coming, everybody. Remember always, and stick with me there, Glenn, right after we stop the stream.
Okay.
Remember always, ladies and gentlemen, stay awake, but dare to dream. Bye, everybody.